Engineer Kim wiped the sweat from his forehead as another alarm blared through the corridors of Centauri Station. The massive space station hung in the void between three distant stars, its metal hull groaning under the stress of failing systems. Red warning lights bathed everything in an eerie glow, and the air recyclers wheezed like dying animals. Another power surge in Sector 7, Kim muttered, checking his handheld scanner. The device showed readings that made his stomach drop. The quantum reactor core was becoming unstable, and fast. Down in the engineering bay, towering Zephyr technicians moved with their usual precision. Their blue-scaled bodies gleamed under the harsh lights, as they worked with tools that seemed to float in their six-fingered hands. These aliens had built this station with technology so advanced that humans were still trying to understand the basics. Human Kim called out Chief Engineer Veltar, his voice carrying the musical tone all Zephyrians possessed. Your readings are incorrect. Our scanners showed different data. Kim looked at his device again. The numbers hadn't changed. Sir, I'm reading massive quantum fluctuations. The containment field is weakening. 3 other Zephyrian engineers stopped their work and gathered around Veltar's central console, their long necks craned as they examined the holographic displays floating above the control panel. Complex equations and energy patterns danced in the air, showing the reactor's current state. Impossible, Veltar announced after several minutes of calculation. The quantum matrix cannot fail. We designed it with 17 layers of redundancy. Kim felt his heart racing. He had worked with these aliens for 2 years, and their technology was incredible. But sometimes they were so focused on their perfect designs that they missed what was actually happening. The station shuddered violently. Emergency lights flickered, and somewhere in the distance, Kim could hear the sound of metal tearing. Through the massive viewport he could see small debris floating away from the station's hull. Commander Lee, to all engineering staff, came the voice over the intercom system. Report to the bridge immediately. The engineering bay fell silent except for the hum of failing systems. Kim gathered his tools and followed the Zephyrian engineers through the winding corridors. The station was huge, built to house over 10,000 beings from dozens of different species. Now it felt like a tomb. On the bridge, Commander Lee stood before the main viewscreen. She was a small woman compared to the towering aliens around her, but her presence filled the room. Her dark eyes studied the tactical displays showing the station's deteriorating condition. Veltar, give me your assessment, she ordered. The Zephyrian chief engineer stepped forward, his scaled hands clasped behind his back. Commander, our analysis shows the quantum reactor is experiencing minor fluctuations. Nothing that cannot be corrected with standard maintenance procedures. Kim stepped forward. Commander, with respect, that's not what I'm seeing. The containment field is losing integrity. We have maybe 18 hours before complete failure. Veltar's head turned toward Kim with a sharp motion. Human engineer, your primitive scanning equipment cannot accurately read our quantum technology. The reactor core is stable. Then why is the station shaking apart? Kim asked, pointing to a crack that had appeared in the bridge's ceiling. Commander, Lee held up her hand for silence. Veltar, how long would it take to evacuate the station? Evacuation would require 48 hours minimum, Veltar replied. We must transport civilians to the cargo ships in the lower docking bays. Then coordinate with the fleet vessels waiting at the edge of the system. And if Kim is right about the timeline, the bridge fell silent. Everyone understood the mathematics. If the reactor failed in 18 hours and evacuation took 48 hours, thousands of beings would die. Commander Lee walked to the viewport and stared out at the stars. I've served on this station for 5 years. I've seen human intuition solve problems that alien logic couldn't touch. Veltar, your people built incredible technology, but sometimes the creators become blind to their creation's flaws. Commander, I must protest, Veltar said, his musical voice rising in pitch. Zephyrian engineering is flawless. The quantum reactor cannot fail in the manner this human suggests. Kim felt frustration building in his chest. He had seen this before. The Zephyrians were brilliant, but they thought in straight lines. They couldn't imagine their perfect systems failing in imperfect ways. Commander, Kim said quietly, let me study the reactor core. Give me access to the quantum chamber. Maybe I can find something the original designers missed. Commander Lee turned from the viewport. Veltar, you have my orders. Give Engineer Kim full access to the reactor systems. We're not evacuating until we've exhausted every option. The Zephyrian scales rippled with what Kim had learned was their equivalent of sighing. Very well, Commander, but when this human's primitive methods fail, we will have wasted precious time. Kim nodded grimly. He was about to attempt something that had never been done before, a human trying to repair alien technology that even its creators couldn't fix. Deep in the bowels of Centauri Station, Kim crawled through maintenance tunnels that weren't built for human bodies. The quantum reactor chamber lay behind layers of shielding that hummed with deadly energy. His scanner clicked frantically as radiation levels spiked with each pulse of the failing core. "This is insane," he whispered to himself, squeezing through a gap between two massive conduits. Glowing plasma flowed through transparent tubes above his head, carrying power to different sections of the station. One wrong move and he'd be vaporized. Instantly. The reactor chamber was a cathedral of alien technology. Crystalline structures twisted upward like frozen lightning, pulsing with blue-white energy that hurt to look at directly. The quantum matrix floated in the center, a sphere of pure energy contained within invisible force fields. It should have been beautiful, but Kim could see the cracks forming in the containment pattern. "What are you doing here, human?" Kim spun around to find Dr. Park standing in the chamber entrance. She was the station's chief physicist, one of only 3 humans qualified to work with quantum technology. Her lab coat was singed from recent experiments, and her usually neat hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. "Park, thank goodness," Kim said. "I need another pair of eyes on this. Something's wrong with the quantum matrix, but I can't figure out what." Park approached the central console carefully. Her fingers danced over holographic controls, calling up diagnostic displays that filled the air around them. Numbers and equations flowed like waterfalls of light, showing the reactor's vital signs. "The containment field is fluctuating," she said, frowning at the data. "But according to Zephyrian calculations, this should be impossible. The quantum anchors are holding steady." Kim pointed to his scanner. "Look at these readings. The energy patterns are shifting in ways that don't match the original design specs. It's like the quantum matrix is trying to evolve." "That's ridiculous," Park said, but her voice lacked conviction. She had worked with human intuition long enough to know it often revealed truths that pure logic missed. Suddenly the station lurched violently. Both humans grabbed onto the nearest support beams as the lights flickered. Through the chamber's viewport they could see small explosions erupting along the station's outer hull. Atmosphere vented into space in thin white streams. "We're running out of time," Kim said. "The Zephyrians keep insisting their design is perfect, but perfection doesn't account for quantum evolution." Park's eyes widened. "Wait, say that again." "Quantum evolution. The Matrix has been running for 15 years. Quantum particles don't follow the same rules as regular matter. Maybe the system has adapted beyond its original parameters." Park began pulling up new displays, her excitement growing. "Kim, you might be onto something. Look at this energy signature from 5 years ago, then compare it to today." The holographic data showed a clear pattern. The quantum matrix had indeed changed over time, developing new pathways and energy flows that its creators never intended. It was like a living system that had grown beyond its cage. "The Zephyrians designed this reactor like a machine," Park said, her voice rising with discovery. "But quantum energy behaves more like a living organism. It adapts, it evolves, it finds new ways to flow. So how do we fix it?" Kim asked. Park stared at the swirling energy patterns. "We don't fix it. We help it evolve properly." 3 Zephyrian engineers entered the chamber at that moment, led by Their tall forms moved with mechanical precision as they approached the humans. "What are you doing in here?" Veltar demanded. "This chamber is restricted during maintenance procedures." "We think we found the problem," Kim said. "The quantum matrix has evolved beyond your original design parameters." Veltar's scales rippled with what Kim had learned was their version of laughter. "Impossible. Quantum energy follows precise mathematical laws. It cannot evolve as you suggest." "But what if it can?" Park interrupted. "What if 15 years of continuous operation has allowed the quantum particles to find more efficient pathways?" The other Zephyrian engineers exchanged glances. One of them, a younger female named Keshra, stepped forward. "Dr. Park, even if such evolution were possible, how would we control it?" "We wouldn't control it," Kim said. "We'd guide it." Veltar's neck stretched upward in alarm. "Absolutely not. Uncontrolled quantum energy could destroy this entire system. We follow established protocols." The station shook again, more violently this time. Warning sirens began blaring throughout the chamber. On the main display, they could see the containment field losing another 2% stability. "Your protocols are failing," Park said firmly. "Look at the data. The quantum matrix is trying to reorganize itself into a more stable configuration, but your containment system won't let it." "You're suggesting we remove the safety barriers?" Keshra asked. her voice filled with horror. Not remove them, Kim said, his mind racing. Reconfigure them. Instead of forcing the quantum energy to follow the old pathways, we create new channels that match its evolved patterns. Veltar shook his head vigorously. This violates every principle of Zephyrian engineering. We cannot risk such reckless experimentation. We can't risk not trying, Park shot back. In 12 hours, your perfect design is going to kill everyone. On this station, the chamber fell silent except for the ominous humming of the failing reactor. Kim could see doubt creeping into Keshra's large eyes. Even some of the other Zephyrian engineers were looking uncertain. Commander Lee to Dr. Park, came a voice over the intercom. What's your status down there? Park looked at Kim, then at the swirling quantum matrix. Commander, we have a possible solution. It's unconventional, but it might work. How unconventional? Kim stepped closer to the communication panel. Commander, we need to let the reactor evolve. The quantum reactor chamber buzzed with tension. As Kim and Park prepared for the most dangerous repair attempt in the station's history, Commander Lee had given them clearance despite Veltar's protests, but time was running out fast. The containment field readings showed only 6 hours before complete failure. This is madness, Veltar muttered, his blue scales shimmering with agitation. You cannot simply rewire quantum containment systems like primitive electrical circuits. Kim ignored the alien engineer and focused on the holographic display floating before him. The quantum matrix pulsed with unstable energy, its patterns shifting like a living thing trying to break free from its cage. Park, can you isolate the primary quantum flow while I reconfigure the containment channels? Already on it, Park replied, her hands dancing over the control interface. Streams of data flowed around her as she worked to understand the reactor's evolved patterns. The energy wants to flow through these new pathways, but the old containment field keeps forcing it back. Suddenly, the chamber doors hissed open. Mechanic Cho stumbled in, his coveralls stained with hydraulic fluid and his face streaked with sweat. Commander Lee sent me down here. Said you needed all the human help you could get. Behind him came Technician Han, carrying a toolkit that looked primitive compared to the sophisticated Zephyrian equipment surrounding them. Her short black hair was tied back with a piece of wire, and her work boots were held together with industrial tape. What's the situation? CO asked, looking around at the alien technology with wide eyes. We're trying to save the station by breaking every rule in the Zephyrian engineering manual, Kim said grimly. Think you can handle that? Cho grinned. Breaking rules is what humans do best. Viltar stepped forward, his tall form looming over the humans. Commander Lee, I must protest this decision. These humans have no understanding of quantum mechanics. They will destroy us all. Veltar came Lee's voice over the intercom. Your people have had 15 years to perfect this reactor. Right now, it's failing. Let the humans try their approach. Kim began disconnecting quantum flow regulators, devices that looked like crystalline flowers blooming from the reactor core. Each one controlled a specific energy pathway, keeping the quantum matrix locked in its original configuration. Kim, what are you doing? Keshra gasped, watching in horror as he pulled out a regulator that pulsed with dangerous energy. Giving the reactor room to breathe, Kim replied, carefully setting the device aside. The quantum matrix immediately began shifting, its energy patterns flowing into new configurations. Park monitored the changes on her display. Energy flow is increasing by 12%. The matrix is finding more efficient pathways. Efficient pathways that could overload the entire system, Veltar warned. You're removing safety systems that have protected this station for years. Han stepped up to one of the containment field generators, a device that hummed with barely contained power. This thing is fighting the natural energy flow. What if we redirect it instead of blocking it? That's impossible, one of the Zephyrian engineers protested. The containment field must maintain precise geometric patterns. Any deviation could cause cascade failure, or it could allow the reactor to stabilize in its new configuration, Cho said, studying the energy readings. Look, I don't understand quantum physics, but I understand flow dynamics. This energy is like water trying to find the easiest path downhill. Kim nodded, understanding Cho's analogy. The Zephyrians built dams to control the flow, but now the water level has changed. We need to build new channels. Working together, the human team began modifying the containment system. They used techniques that made the alien engineers cringe, bypassing safety protocols, jury-rigging connections, and trusting their intuition over established procedures. This is insane, Veltar repeated, watching Kim connect to quantum regulators. In a configuration that violated every principle of Zephyrian engineering, Those components were never designed to work together. Maybe that's the problem, Park said, her voice tight with concentration. Your people designed everything to work in isolation, but quantum energy is interconnected. It wants to flow as a unified system. The station shuddered again, more violently than before. Through the chamber's viewport, they could see entire sections of the outer hull beginning to buckle. Emergency lights flashed throughout the station as non-essential systems shut down. To preserve power, containment field down to 30%, Han reported, her voice calm despite the chaos around them. Whatever we're doing, it needs to work fast. Kim was elbow-deep in the quantum matrix housing, rewiring connections with tools that weren't designed for human hands. Sparks of energy danced around his fingers as he worked, each one potentially lethal. The energy patterns are becoming more stable, Park announced, surprise evident in her voice. The quantum matrix is finding equilibrium in the new configuration. Temporarily, Veltar said grimly, but without proper containment protocols, the system will eventually overload. Kim looked up from where he was modifying a power coupling. What if we don't try to contain it? What if we just guide it? The Zephyrian engineers exchanged alarmed glances. The idea of an uncontained quantum reactor was their worst nightmare. Trust us, Kim said, looking directly at Veltar. Sometimes, the best solution is the one that shouldn't work. The quantum matrix pulsed brighter, its energy patterns shifting into configurations that had never been seen before. The humans continued their desperate work, racing against time as the station's life support systems began to fail around them. The quantum reactor chamber had become a battlefield between human intuition and alien logic. Sparks flew as Kim worked, frantically inside the reactor core, his hands moving with desperate precision. The containment field was down to 15%, and every alarm on the station was screaming warnings. Kim, you need to get out of there, Park shouted over the noise. The quantum flux is reaching dangerous levels. Not yet, Kim replied, sweat dripping down his face as he rewired another connection. I can feel it. The energy wants to flow. This way. Veltar stepped forward, his scales rippling with agitation. Feel it. Quantum energy cannot be felt. It follows mathematical principles, not human emotions. That's where you're wrong, Kim said, making a connection that caused the entire chamber to pulse with blue light. Everything in the universe has a rhythm, even quantum particles. The alien engineers watched in horror as Kim began connecting components that should never touch. He was linking the primary quantum matrix to the secondary stabilizers through a path that violated every safety protocol in the Zephyrian manual. He's going to cause a cascade failure, Keshra whispered, backing away from the reactor core. Park was studying her readings with growing excitement. No, look at the energy patterns. They're not random anymore. Kim's connections are creating a new stability matrix. Cho climbed up onto the reactor housing, tools in hand. Kim, what do you need from me? See that crystal array up there? The one that's pulsing red? Kim pointed to a formation of crystalline structures near the chamber's ceiling. I need you to reverse the polarity on every third crystal. Reverse the polarity? Veltar's voice rose to a shriek. Those crystals regulate quantum phase alignment. Reversing them will destroy the entire system, or it will create a feedback loop that stabilizes the matrix, Han said, studying the energy flow patterns. Kim, I think I see what you're doing. You're not trying to control the quantum energy, you're trying to make it control itself. Kim nodded, his hands never stopping their work. Exactly. The Zephyrians built this reactor like a cage, but quantum energy doesn't want to be caged. It wants to flow in harmony. Park's eyes widened as she understood. You're creating a quantum ecosystem. The energy flows will regulate each other naturally. This is impossible, Veltar protested. Quantum energy must be controlled with precise mathematical formulas. You cannot simply let it flow freely. Watch us, Cho said, hanging upside down from the reactor housing as he worked on the crystal array. Each crystal he touched began pulsing with a different color, creating a rainbow of energy that flowed through the chamber. The station shuddered violently, and somewhere in the distance, they could hear the sound of hull plates tearing away. Emergency evacuation alarms began blaring throughout the station. All non-essential personnel to the escape pods, came Commander Lee's voice over the intercom. This is not a drill. We have 15 minutes before reactor failure. Most of the Zephyrian engineers began filing out of the chamber, their faces filled with resigned terror, but Keshra remained, watching the humans work with fascination. Why do you stay? Veltar asked her. Because they might be right, Keshra replied quietly. Our mathematics say this should be impossible, but look at the energy readings. The quantum matrix is stabilizing. Kim was now completely inside the reactor core, surrounded by swirling energy that should have killed him instantly. But somehow, the quantum field seemed to bend around him, as if recognizing his intent. "Park, I need you to route all auxiliary power through the new pathways," he called out, "and Han, start bringing the backup quantum chambers online." "Kim, that's insane," Park protested. "If the backup chambers activate while the primary matrix is unstable, the whole station could explode." "Trust me," Kim said, his voice calm despite the chaos around him. "The reactor doesn't want to explode. It wants to sink." Han began activating the backup systems, her fingers flying over controls that were designed for alien hands. Each backup chamber came online with a deep harmonic tone, adding its voice to the growing symphony of quantum energy. The evacuation continued outside the chamber. Escape pods launched from the station like seeds from a dying flower, carrying terrified aliens to safety. The few humans who remained worked with quiet determination, following Kim's impossible plan. "Quantum resonance achieved," Park announced, her voice filled with wonder. "The energy patterns are synchronizing across all chambers." Kim emerged from the reactor core, his clothes singed but his face triumphant. "Now comes the hard part. We need to let the reactor rebuild itself." "Let it rebuild itself," Veltar's voice was barely a whisper. "The quantum matrix knows how it wants to be configured," Kim explained. "We just need to give it the tools and get out of the way." Working together, the human team began removing the last of the safety constraints. Ancient containment fields that had held the quantum energy in rigid patterns for 15 years were switched off one by one. The reactor core began to transform. Energy flowed in new patterns, creating structures that had never existed before. The quantum matrix evolved before their eyes, becoming something beautiful and terrible and completely beyond alien understanding. "Evacuation complete," came Lee's voice. "All personnel except the engineering team have reached minimum safe distance." Kim looked around at his small team of humans, then at the few aliens who had chosen to stay. "This is it. Either we save the station, or we all die together." The quantum reactor pulsed once, twice, then began to sing. The quantum reactor's song filled the chamber with harmonious tones that seemed to resonate in their very bones. Kim stood transfixed as the energy patterns danced before his eyes. No longer chaotic but flowing in perfect synchronization. The reactor core had transformed into something that looked more like a living crystal garden than a machine. "Impossible," Veltar whispered, his scaled hands trembling as he checked his instruments. "The quantum efficiency is at 137%. This exceeds all theoretical maximums." Park laughed with pure joy as she watched the readings cascade across her displays. "Kim, we didn't just fix the reactor. We helped it become what it was always meant to be." The station had stopped shaking. Emergency alarms fell silent one by one, replaced by the gentle hum of perfectly balanced systems. Through the chamber's viewport, they could see the escape pods turning around, their occupants watching in amazement as Centauri Station blazed with new life. "Engineering team to Commander Lee," Kim spoke into his communicator, his voice hoarse. "From exhaustion, reactor is stable, more than stable. We have full power restoration across all systems." "Copy that. Engineering, stand by for station-wide announcement." Commander Lee's voice echoed through every corridor and chamber of the massive station. "All personnel, this is your commander. The crisis has passed. Centauri Station is not only operational but running at peak efficiency. Return to your posts." Sue climbed down from the reactor housing, his face covered in quantum residue that sparkled like stardust. "I still can't believe that worked. We basically threw out the instruction manual and rebuilt this thing from scratch." "Not rebuilt," Han corrected, wiping her hands on a cloth that immediately began glowing from quantum contamination. "We helped it rebuild itself. There's a difference." Kashra approached the new reactor configuration with scientific curiosity overriding her earlier fear. "The quantum matrix has created entirely new pathways. These energy flows, they're more elegant than anything in our original design." Veltar studied the holographic displays that showed the reactor's new structure. His musical voice carried a note of wonder as he spoke. "For 15 years, we forced the quantum energy to follow our predetermined paths. But you humans, you listened to what the energy wanted to do." "That's what we do," Kim said, slumping against a control console as exhaustion finally caught up with him. "We look at a problem and ask what if instead of why not." Over the following weeks, word of the impossible repair spread throughout the galaxy. Scientists from dozens of worlds requested permission to study the modified reactor. The Galactic Engineering Council, which had previously dismissed human techniques as primitive and dangerous, suddenly wanted to understand how humans had accomplished what their greatest minds had declared impossible. Dr. Zethkin, the Council's chief physicist, arrived on Centauri Station with a team of researchers from 7 different species. The tall, crystalline being studied the reactor with instruments that cost more than most planets' annual budgets. "Your methodology defies conventional understanding," Zethkin told Kim during their first meeting. "You appear to have treated quantum energy as if it possessed consciousness." "Maybe it does," Kim replied. "Maybe all energy has a kind of awareness that we don't understand yet. The reactor wasn't broken, it was just trying to evolve, and we were stopping it." Park had been promoted to Chief of Quantum Research and was now fielding requests from universities across the galaxy. "The interesting thing is that every reactor we've modified using Kim's techniques has developed its own unique configuration. It's like they each have their own personality." Commander Lee stood on the bridge, looking out at the convoy of research vessels that had gathered around Centauri Station. A message from the Galactic Council glowed on her personal display. A commendation for her crew's revolutionary contribution to interstellar engineering. "Commander," came Velta's voice from behind her. "The Zephyrian engineer had requested a private meeting. I owe you an apology, and more importantly, I owe your humans my life." Lee turned to face him. "They did what they always do, Velta. They found a way." "No, it's more than that," Veltar said, his scales shifting to colors that indicated deep thought. "We Zephyrians pride ourselves on logical perfection, but your humans showed us that perfect logic can become a prison. Sometimes the most logical solution is to abandon logic entirely." Months later, Kim found himself addressing the Galactic Engineering Summit on the core world of Nexus Prime. Thousands of beings from hundreds of species listened as he explained the principles behind what had become known as adaptive quantum engineering. "The key is not to impose our will on the technology," Kim told the assembled crowd. "Instead, we become partners with it. We guide, we suggest, we listen, and sometimes, we just get out of the way and let the universe show us something new." In the audience, Velta translated Kim's words for a group of young Zephyrian engineers. "This is why humans are so valuable to our civilization," he told them. "They think in ways that we cannot. They see possibilities where we see only problems. Today, human engineering teams work on every major space station and starship in the galaxy. The techniques developed by Kim and his team have prevented 17 reactor failures and improved energy efficiency by an average of 40% across all installations. But perhaps more importantly, the success at Centauri Station proved that human intuition and creativity are not weaknesses to be overcome, but strengths to be celebrated. In a galaxy full of logical, predictable species, humanity's chaotic brilliance has become its greatest gift to the stars." Kim still works as an engineer, now traveling from station to station, teaching others how to listen to their technology, instead of simply commanding it. And wherever he goes, the quantum reactors sing a little brighter, as if they too have learned the value of thinking beyond the impossible. The end.